introduction to APIs. What are APIs? APIs are a gateway to the data in a system. They are platform and language independent. They are over the web, and it is a way to interact and integrate these various systems. So the most important thing over here to note is that APIs are language and platform independent, thus helping multiple systems based on various programming languages, database technologies, and platforms to integrate and communicate with each other. This has facilitated integrations to a huge extent in the modern age of digitalization, right from payment gateways to payment apps to various merchant point of sales apps and a lot of other such business cases which make day-to-day interaction with systems right on our fingertips. Let's look at a very simple API architecture diagram. To understand this, let's move step by step. So what an API does is it definitely integrates two systems, but then what does it integrate? It basically pulls and pushes data, and hence it interacts with the database. But this doesn't mean that it has direct access to the database. The database is hidden from the API, and on top of it, as we all know, it is an abstraction layer. There is an abstraction layer which sits on top of the database. Most of us who have been working on SAP would know this as data dictionary, which abstracts the database. And then on top of this finally is the API layer, which interacts with the database through this abstraction layer and forms the part of this architecture diagram which we can call as the publisher, or the system which exposes the API endpoint. Next comes a layer of authentication, which is very important because here in this scenario, and for all API scenarios, in fact, we deal with data which may be private, confidential, and may have sensitive information. Hence, authentication is a very key aspect of any API-based integration. On top of this, there could be an optional layer of API management. An API management layer is like an API gateway. For example, Apigee by Google is a very popular API management platform. It provides governance over APIs, API security, API routing, and also dashboard and analytics for API usage. As well as it also allows publishing of APIs and exposing it, monetizing it, all of these features. But this is not the topic for this session. So this API management layer acts as a proxy. And finally, on the other side is the consumer of the API, which could be an end user or it could be another business for a B2B scenario. And this consumer application interacts with this API endpoint over the internet, which is the most interesting part. So it sends a request in the form of a URL. This URL, of course, has an operation, which could be a get operation or a post operation. And it sends data, which is first authenticated. It goes through a layer of authentication by sending credentials and receiving a token, or using basic authentication using a user ID and a password. But definitely it has to authenticate, and it gets back response, usually in the form of JSON or even XML, which are open standards. Hence, we can conclude that APIs are universal and open source in nature, and they help integrate multiple systems based on different platforms, and it facilitates the exchange of data over the internet. You are able to grasp the concept of APIs. After this, we will look into different types of APIs, and in particular SuccessFactors APIs. Thank you very much.